the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. Coming to you from a minor league city this week, which is very exciting for me, at least. A guy who is coming to us from the most major league of cities is Benjamin Hill, who is in New York City, once home to 3 major league clubs. Ben, how are you? I don't know why I just dropped a fact about the 1950s like anybody was.
I found it fascinating, and it reminded me, yes, New York City was home to 3 major league clubs. What an era. Now it's only home to 2.
Yeah.
So small time now. Only 2 major league teams. But yeah, Tyler, you're in Hartford. You are in Hartford, Connecticut. I still want to call it Dunkin' Donuts Park, but it's just Dunkin' now.
It is.
Which is tied in with the rebranding of that corporation. They took the donuts out of Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, I don't like that. That feels very which, you got to go after your target market. But I always call it Dunkin' Donuts, even now after it's rebranded. It's a very Northeast thing that people only call it Dunkin', and I get it. Dunkin' is a very Northeast thing itself, but I kind of miss the donuts. I liked Dunkin' Donuts. I like the alliteration. Each word has 2 syllables. I thought it was great. Now Dunkin' is like, eh.
Yeah, like Duncan, like just some guy's name.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this is Kyle Duncan. Like
it would be Kyle.
It would be Kyle.
No offense to all the Kyles out there, or let alone the Kyle Duncan. If your name is Kyle Duncan and you are listening to this,
please get in touch. Podcast at MLB.com. Let us know. We're going to get emails from a bunch of furious Kyle Duncans. But yeah, I am in Hartford, Connecticut, home of the Hartford Yard Goats for tomorrow's Home Run Derby X. It'll be the very first Home Run Derby X hosted in the continental borders of the United States, actually within any borders of the United States, protectorates, states outside of the contiguous United States. Home Run Derby X, we, of course, did in June ahead of the Cubs-Cardinals series in London. We've got one here in Hartford this weekend. We've got one 2 weeks from now in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I think tickets are still available for that one. But you can come out and watch some former big leaguers and some baseball and softball stars from around the country and around the globe smash dingers in Hartford and Fredericksburg. And pretty excited, man. It's been a while since I've been to what was then known as Dunkin' Donuts Park. But I believe that I'll be with Yard Goats broadcaster Jeff Dooley tomorrow on the call for Home Run Derby X, which will be very fun. Mike Abramson, who is the legend behind the renowned Hartford Yard Goats Twitter account from even before that team existed, just when they had a social media following that had exploded. They didn't even have a franchise here yet. Mike Abramson, the AGM then, had been the guy behind that. So I'll get to see him later. It's really one of the crown franchises of minor league baseball, and they get to host the very first Home Run Derby X. So that's what I'm doing here, which is very cool. It's been a while since I've been here at this beautiful AA ballpark. But we're excited for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. We got a lot coming up for you. You can get in touch with us. Podcast at MILB.com as noted. And we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up, but we first have to note to you that Samuel C. Dykstra gets his very own segment this week because we're in the middle of the top 100 prospect re-ranks. So Sam will join us coming up in a couple of segments to talk about the new top 100 list. So it's just me and Ben. You get to kick things off with me and Ben for the first 2 segments this week. And I like it. It's, it's like one of those sitcoms where you watch where, like, obviously a character was pregnant or something and they're not on that week's episode. Sam is pregnant, giving birth to the new top 100 this week, so he's not on for these first 2 segments.
He is, and yet we are the ones who are expecting
to
read his wonderful output. I'll tell you what, Sam Dykstra, Samuel C. Dykstra, he sits directly behind me here in the office, and I don't know if he'd want me to disseminate this, but his desk just looks like the desk of a madman, especially around re-ranking times. He has these big white, big notebooks, white paper, but they're like double sized, and he writes in really big letters and like incomprehensible, and they're just scribbled all over. It's like he's like Einstein or Stephen Hawking or somebody,
or the Joker,
yeah, a little more darkly. And and he almost always has headphones on, and I always feel shy about interrupting him because I'm like, oh, his work is so serious and he's so deep in his complex equations. But that guy works. He's getting it done.
He does certainly get it done. All right, Ben. Well, we last week when we caught up with you, you were in Binghamton, New York, trying feverishly to uncover the reason behind Beethoven Street and the name behind it.
Yeah, which I did not find, but I did in my admittedly um, not very in-depth research attempts. I did look it up a little bit, and I did find that Beethoven Street has a Beat Beethoven 5K annually, where you try to run a 5K in less than the time it takes for them to play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which I believe is something like 32 minutes.
That's a great idea, especially the fact that it is the Fifth Symphony for the 5K. That's a really clever idea.
Yeah, and it looked like there was other ones around. So I don't even know if the idea originated in Binghamton and Beethoven Street, because my Googling found other beat Beethoven 5Ks elsewhere in the country, but Binghamton, New York, on Beethoven Street has had one right around there in Recreation Park, where I did talk to you guys last week, near a gazebo and carousel used in the Twilight Zone.
Which was
Now I'm
also
just
very
in a
cool.
little phone room in an office, and it's just not nearly as compelling. But we just take what life gives us.
Not the same level of charm. But you talked to us last week, right before you were getting on the road to Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, or Wilkesboro, as some people say. And you got a chance to spend some time with the Rail Riders. Give us a lowdown. What was that trip? Not your first trip there, obviously, but a place where they have had one of the best stories, I would say, of making ballpark renovations work. They spent an entire season playing away from that stadium in not even in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, but in Moosic, PA, correct?
Yeah,
As they did
technically in Moosic.
massive renovation. They essentially built basically an entirely new ballpark, while that team, which I believe back then was still known as were
They were the Yankees at that
at that
time.
time? Okay.
Yeah.
And now that ballpark is beloved and has been very successful. But tell us about the trip through Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, I've talked about this on the podcast before. And I've written about it before, but how when I was growing up, my parents got a house and for a while lived full time in Gouldsboro, Pennsylvania, which is in the Poconos and not too far from Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Moosic, PA. And so I went to my first minor league games when they were the AAA Philadelphia Phillies affiliate, the Red Barons, in the late 80s and early 90s. So I have these strong childhood associations with going to games at that ballpark. But Tyler, like you mentioned, in 2012, they did renovations that were so extensive so as to essentially be a new ballpark. The ballpark, as it was originally constructed, was this multi-level, pretty hulking, artificial turf, same dimensions of Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. They tore that whole thing down and built a new stadium more in line with what we now perceive as present day architectural ballpark trends, where there's of course a 360-degree concourse, very large fancy video board, all sorts of bells and whistles, room to move, group areas, that kind of thing. But a cool thing about the setting of this ballpark, now known as PNC Field, is it is right up against the side of a mountain. So right beyond the outfield concourse is a steep rock face. And I put a video up on Twitter that people seem to be really into, showing at first that nature rock mountain background and then panning to the baseball game going on at the same time. And that juxtaposition of something that seems really in nature with an actual AAA baseball game at the same time is interesting. And I think it's one of the most charming things about going to see a game, the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders at this juncture of their existence, AAA affiliate of the New York Yankees.
When you tell people the things that you like most about that area or that ballpark, or the stuff to see or do, what makes, one of my favorite things when we get to hear your stories from on the road are kind of the unique things about each ballpark in each region. What stands out about that area or those fans or that ballpark that you would say is different, or is a unique aspect for them?
Well, fan-wise, a unique aspect is, there's a lot of both Philadelphia and New York baseball fans in that area. It's in Pennsylvania, but it's within roughly a 90-minute drive from New York City. So they started out as a Phillies affiliate. Now they're a Yankees affiliate, which makes sense, in terms of both affiliations. But something that came up in one of the interviews I was doing at the ballpark, in which I've heard before, is there's maybe a somewhat disproportionate amount of Yankees fans in the area, which is of course good now that they're a Yankees affiliate. But I think part of the reason is that is going back, there's a decent amount of Italians, Italian American people who live in the Pocono region and Scranton and that sort of thing, who have legacy as Yankees fans, and a lot of that goes back to that like 1950s era of Yankees baseball, where there were some really prominent Italian players. So baseball fans of Italian heritage gravitated to the Yankees because of the likes of Joe DiMaggio, Phil Rizzuto, Tony Lazzeri, right? That was that was
Correct. Yeah.
that kind of thing. So there's an interesting split between the PA and New York sports allegiances. As I said, it's an area that I just have good memories of growing up. Spent a good portion of different summers in the region. So, for me, Red Barons baseball was part of that. But just the natural beauty of the Poconos, being outside, driving around these winding roads, wooded areas, it just feels very pleasant to me, and still brings back memories of childhood vacations. Because where you grow up, where I did in suburban Philadelphia, and you're going on vacation and it's not something out of the ordinary, you're either going to the Poconos or the Jersey Shore. So both those areas have baseball teams. We got the Lakewood Blue Claws, who are now the Jersey Shore Blue Claws, and the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders representing the Poconos. So I enjoy that aspect of it for sure. And as I said, the natural setting of the ballpark itself. And had a good time there. Spent some time on the air with Adam Marco on the TV broadcast. And then he was like, "Oh, go see Emily." Emily Messina, who's usually his partner, but because this was a TV game, Adam was on the TV and Emily was on the radio. And he's like, "Oh, go see Emily. She's expecting you, or she won't mind." So by the time I get over there, it was just about to start the top of an inning, and I just sort of walk in, and she's like, "Hey," and she had a partner on the radio who's like, "Should I leave?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to crash it," but we just rolled with it, and had a lot of fun during my half inning on the air with Emily. And at one point, she's like, "Hey, do you want to do this batter? Play by play?" And I was like, "Well, I can't say no." And my goodness, I've tried before in the past, but I'm always struck by how difficult it is. Even for someone like me who spent so much of his life around baseball and ballparks, it is so hard. And this at bat, first of all, I couldn't identify what a pitch was. I could say it was inside, but I was like, I don't know, breaking ball, whatever. I couldn't do that. And then when the ball was hit, looks like the left fielder kind of got it lost in the lights. I thought it was shallow, and then it bounces behind him, and I was like, and I was just speechless and fumbling and like, and then Emily's finally like, "Okay," and then like just went in, total pro, like, let me smooth this out and say what happened. And man, it was embarrassing, but I did kind of enjoy the opportunity to fall flat on my face and once again gain a deeper appreciation for how hard it is to be a broadcaster. Because I think as a fan, you're like, "Hey, I watch baseball all the time. I know what's going on. So all I have to do is just say what's going on. I'll just vocalize my thoughts." But boy, oh boy, it is difficult.
All right, Ben. Well, what's coming up next for you?
For me, well, I've got a lot of material pretty much from this last road trip, because after let's talk about Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs next week. But after Scranton, I went to Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, spent Scrapple night with them. So I got material from Syracuse, Binghamton, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Lehigh Valley, and some odds and ends from my previous trips, and putting together the details of my next and final trip in September. I did have a short trip in August that in baseball terminology, I banged it. I just could not get it together. I said, this trip is banged. So apologies to the teams I was going to visit next week. I took it off my schedule. I didn't really promote it too much. Why am I even talking about it now? I think it's because I feel guilty, because I told myself I was going to do it. And then I said, no, it's just too much. It's too much. I'm old and busy. I'm a dad now. It is tough to do these trips and come back and manage little family vacations in between. And you know what I want to do? I want to go on vacation in the Poconos. I want to just hang out there. I don't want to work there. Just want to hang out in
That
a
does
nice
sound pretty
cabin.
cool.
Yeah, it's a very nice area. Anyway, so that's a lot of road trip stuff coming up, and of course the season's still going on with all the promotions and X, Y, and Z elements of that. I think maybe not this week, but we should get back on that, just talking about fun things around the minors in the near future, because hey, they're always going on.
That is the truth. And one of those fun and fascinating things in minor league baseball is going on in Lake County right now and this weekend. And that's our interview segment for this week. Ben, tee it up for us.
Yeah, we have currently a broadcaster named Allan Wylie doing games, color commentary for the Lake County Captains. Um, we're recording this on Thursday, August 10th, and he's doing the game tonight. He's done the last couple games. He's doing one Saturday and then 3 next week. And we talked to Allan Wylie because he has an interesting story. He is blind and he is a color commentator. And the Lake County Captains have had him on the broadcast and will continue to have him on. And we wanted to get his story. So we talked to Allan Wylie, the broadcaster, as well as the Captains broadcasting director, Cole Liggett, to talk about how this partnership came about and to talk to Allan about what has led him to this line of work, how he goes about it, and what he hopes for in the future. Here on the show, we are joined by Cole Liggett, the broadcasting coordinator for the Lake County Captains, as well as one of the Captains broadcasters this week and into next week, Allan Wylie, who is blind but still able and excelling at calling minor league baseball games. So, really interesting story in Lake County. Thank both of you guys for being here. Allan, let's start with you. How long have you been broadcasting in some capacity? I know you've done work with the Cleveland Charge and local high school, but how did you get into this field, or first realize you wanted to be involved and then start pursuing it?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So sports have been a big part of my life since I was about 2. I would be listening to Cleveland Indians, now Guardians games with Tom Hamilton calling the games. And that progressed into me following more sports like football, basketball, things like that. And I was listening to a Michigan football game, and Jim Brandstetter and Dan Dierdorf, who retired a couple of years ago, were calling the game. And it got to the point where, I feel like I was sitting there and I'm like, I could do this. I could do the color commentary. Obviously, I couldn't do play-by-play because I couldn't see what was going on, but I could do the color commentary. So it started off with me in high school. We couldn't do it my freshman year because of COVID, so we didn't have a normal TV schedule. But we have a TV station at Westlake, WHBS, and then I started calling football games, as a sophomore there. And before that, I went to a summer camp in Chicago called Play-by-Play Broadcasting Camp. And one of the guys there took my dad aside and said that he wanted to recruit me to go to his school, which is Rowan University, just outside of Philadelphia. It's in Glassboro, New Jersey. And so, that was when it really figured out to me that, this could go somewhere. So I did football for Westlake, and I actually got a story written about it, or rather televised about it, on Fox 8, our local Fox news channel in Cleveland. And then it got to the point where a few weeks later, we got to talk to a guy from the University of Georgia, and he seemed pretty interested in having me there. And I got to visit both Rowan and Georgia, great schools, great people there. And I'm going to visit Syracuse, Bowling Green, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, Wayne State, I think. That's the plan anyways, and Ball State too. So we got a lot of college visits coming up. But yeah, I've been broadcasting. My first broadcast was when I was a sophomore in high school. So I've been doing it for around 2 years now.
Yeah, 2 years of experience and a variety of experiences. Now, Cole, how did Allan come to the attention of the Lake County Captains, and how'd you go about, setting up this current period where he's doing games for the Captains? We're talking here on, August 10th, I believe, the third of 3 games that Allan is doing, and then there's 3 games coming up over the weekend as well. How did this all come together?
So about 2 months ago, the Cleveland Sight Center reached out and said, hey, we have this kid interested in doing color commentating. He's 100% blind, but this is something he's really into. And it's kind of just we lost communication for a little bit, and then finally to really get the ball rolling, it turned into, hey, I want to get him into the month of August. We have a 2-week homestand. And it kind of just started really getting serious about like maybe 2 weeks ago, where I've been on the phone with Allan's dad probably pretty much every day for 3 times a day. And it kind of just like happens, and we actually just added on Allan to our Saturday broadcast, which is MLB's free game of the day. So he'll be on there. So he'll have 7 total games with us this year. And right now we're 2-0 with him, so I might have to bring him onto the staff full time season. So
yeah, that'll be kind of fun.
yeah. So I don't know. It kind of just it happened quick. But with me, it's like I hopped on this opportunity because growing up, it's always been, all because someone has a disability doesn't mean you can't tell them no. So it really meant a lot to me to get Allan in and get him the experience and in the memories of, saying, hey, I called minor league baseball. Hey, I called a Chase DeLauder home run. Hopefully that happens soon. So I just, this was an opportunity I could never say no to. And, having Allan a part of the team, he seems like he's been here all season. We're really comfortable with him and his family. But yeah, no, it's been an honor having him a part of the last 2 broadcasts, and we're gonna have him on many more games.
Well, Allan, tell us about sort of the mechanics of the whole thing. When you got into the booth that first day, what did it feel like? Tell us about that first experience.
Yeah, so when I get into the booth broadcasting, for anything I do research on the individual players, or at the very least, I try to get the players' names down. And I write it down in my little Braille computer that I have. And the first time I came up in the booth a couple of days ago, it felt like, like those places where, you're not home, but it kind of feels like you're where you belong. Yeah. That's kind of what it felt like for me. It felt like this is exactly where I belong. I felt natural there. And the guy calling the game, Logan Petoskey, great guy. Did a good job of, helping me out with all the mechanics and helping me like realize where the players went to college, where, they were before they came to high A, when they got drafted and what their tools are. Are they a power hitter? Are they a speed threat off the base paths? So that's really what it was like. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And like Cole said, I'm hoping to call a Chase DeLauder home run. Mark my words, it's going to happen tonight. So
I like that confidence.
I'm down for a Chase DeLauder home run. We need one.
Yeah, we do.
When you start getting into kind of the flow of a broadcast, what has been the thing that you feel like you've learned most about being part of that dynamic, especially working with somebody else, to figure out sort of when you want to be making a point or sitting back and listening to them as they call the play? What's been kind of the stuff that you've learned most over these first few days?
That one of the things I've learned most is actually, to keep the viewers engaged, no matter if it's 1-0 or 20-0. You got to keep the viewers engaged. And how you can do that is you can kind of start little sidebar conversations. For example, if a player went to Wake Forest, you could talk about their baseball team the year that they were there, how good they were, how far they made it in the NCAA tournament, or the conference realignment is a big thing now. And if they went to a school like Washington or Oregon, you could talk about how they're joining the Big Ten and how that's going to impact their baseball. So, I mean, it's really something that I'll be honest, I'm still learning how to do. I have a good grip on it, I think, but I'm still learning more. I mean, I never stop learning when I'm in the booth. So, but I love to, just keep the viewers engaged, because I think about it. How would I want somebody to be a caller? Like, how would I want somebody to analyze the game? I was listening. How would I want somebody to do that? And so I try to translate that on how the perfect color commentator would be into the words I say, how I say them, and like what conversations I have.
Man, that is all extremely good. Cole, from the standpoint of being somebody who's getting a chance to work with Allan, for young broadcasters, there's a lot of really good stuff to take away from that, like trying to make a a game entertaining, whether it's 1-0 or 20-0. Those sorts of little maxims that you need to carry with you as a broadcaster. What's it been like for you working with Allan and being around him and seeing the way he goes about his work, and being able to sort of learn something from that? What have you taken away?
What I've taken away is pretty much like it's kind of mind blowing because like I'll sit back, like I call the shots for the broadcast, but most of the time I'll kind of sit back and watch them kind of like do their own thing, and I have my guys kind of press the buttons for me. But I'll sit back, I'll watch Allan do his thing, and it's kind of mind blowing because he can't see any notes, he can't see what exactly is going on, but he will remember a stat from the first inning, and it kind of mind blows me because it would be like the top of the eighth, and I'm like, how does he remember that? Like his brain is like a notebook, and it's kind of mind blowing for me that he's capable of doing all this, and it's been an honor to work with him and and his dad, and to kind of make this broadcast go up another level. We never usually have a color commentator, so it kind of has helped our broadcast. It's really helped Logan, so he doesn't have to talk to himself all the time. And I mean, Allan's been absolutely killing it lately. We're 2-0 on that, and I keep emphasizing that. But it's been fun. It's been a blast to work with Logan and Allan and everyone, just kind of making this team so much better. So.
Yeah, so Cole, I called you the broadcast coordinator. I think your official title is a director of broadcast or broadcast director.
It changes on the daily. They call me Big Dog in the room, but my main title, the business title, is director of broadcast. Yes.
All right, so you're calling the shots for the overall broadcast, but you've mentioned Logan. That is the play-by-play announcer. That's Logan Petoskey, I believe.
Logan Potowski, yeah, he just graduated college from John Carroll. He'll talk your ear off about it.
So,
Yeah.
Allan, what has it been like working with Logan? And in your experience so far, what is the process of kind of establishing a rapport and a rhythm with your partner in the booth?
So what it's been like working with Logan, it's been really amazing. He's a guy that graduated college that has been experienced more broadcasting than I have. But he's still, young. He's still young enough to where he and I can kind of relate on the same things. So, like, for example, what I try to do is I'll ask them, where they went to college, or what they like most about the broadcasting part of things. And I really try to get to know them personally. So when we're calling the game, it's more like a really fun conversation between the two of us.
Excellent. So yeah, it's working out so far, and you're developing that rapport. And then thinking big picture, you've got some experience under your belt now. Tonight's game, and then I believe 4 more games, with the captains. But where do you want to? That'll look great on your resume. But where do you want to take this from here as your career progresses?
So I'd like to go to college and major in broadcasting or sports communications. When I graduate college, I would either like to do color commentating and or a sports talk radio show, because like color commentating and talk radio are the things that I feel are my strengths and are something that I can relate to and just really have fun with. We've done like little mock radio shows at the summer camp I was at, so I feel kind of more prepared to do it now, and I know what a lot of it goes into it. So that's what I want to do with the career that I have right now.
And do you have specific inspirations within the blind community, or blind individuals who have done things along the lines that you're doing that have helped pave the way in some sense, or offered advice, or just been mentors as you pursue this?
Not so much, maybe not in the blind community, but in the broadcasting community, definitely. A lot of people that I look up to are Dustin Fox. He helps out on 92.3 The Fan. Mike Valenti does a sports show in Detroit, and he's a really good sports show host. Dan Deerdorf, like I said, he's the one that really inspired me to become a color commentator. And Neil Hartman, who runs the camp I was at, is a really good mentor. And Tom Hamilton, who I got to meet in person, great guy. Michael Ray guy as well, another local broadcaster. So those are really my inspirations.
Excellent. And what has been the reaction so far among your friends, family, people as well as, and maybe Cole, you can speak to this aspect as well, among Captains fans and just getting the story out. What has been the reaction, and because it's an interesting story that definitely captures people's attention.
Yeah, so the reaction to this has been very positive. My family has been with me from the get-go, and my brother is very supportive. My mom and dad are too. My grandparents, even family that lives out of state, is very supportive. And it's just great to know their reactions too. As far as I've seen in the community, it seems like it's very positive. We got a Fox 8 story done a couple days ago. I believe that was Tuesday. And, it just seems like everyone's getting behind it. And, I just really want to thank the Lake County Captains for everything that they have done, because if they wouldn't have given me this opportunity, we wouldn't be here talking right now. So it's just big shout out to them. And this wouldn't be possible without them.
Yeah. And Cole, with the Captains, in the press release that the team put out, announcing that Allan would be with the team, it mentioned that this is part of an ongoing commitment to inclusivity and showcasing, diverse talents. How does this speak to a larger organizational philosophy that's happening right now?
I mean, with the Captains, we've always welcomed everyone with open arms into our organization, whether it's as a fan, even as a viewer. We just try to make it accessible for everybody. We're currently trying to work on this is in the works. This is, I don't know if I'm clear to even say this, but we're working on a Braille night where we're going to, have Braille throughout the whole ballpark. And, even there's been talks about, making a Braille, like, scorecards and all that, like make it more inclusive to not only the blind, but people with other disabilities to really welcome them into Classic Auto Group Park and welcome them into our family. Because Lake County Captains, like our fan base is one big family. We're high A baseball, so I see the same people every day. No matter, they could be rainy outside and the same people show up. So our fan base is one big family, and we just we want to welcome anyone into the family, as I've been saying. And with that, it's we're still in the works of making our ballpark more accessible. Get it more wheelchair friendly, get it to the point where they can never not come to the game because it's not accessible for them, but rather than get them to the game so they can enjoy a good night of baseball.
Well, Allan Wylie will be in the booth. You mentioned that the Saturday broadcast has been added, correct? That's August 12th.
So August, so he'll be here today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Saturday is our MLB free game, so you can tune in on the MLB app, or Bally Live, and it'll be totally free. First pitch is at 7:00. You'll hear Logan Potowski, Allan Wylie, and the crew. Sometimes we jump on, so we have a big production coming our way. It's going to be our biggest game of the year, in my opinion. We're adding 4 more cameras on, so it's the biggest production, and it's going to be really to highlight what Lake County has to offer.
Well, that's awesome. That's this Saturday. Tune in. I think all minor league baseball fans, if you get an opportunity, tune into the Captains game on Saturday, August 12th, and then also August 15th through the 17th for 3 games against the Peoria Chiefs as well. Cole Liggett, Director of Broadcasting for the Lake County Captains, and Allan Wylie, the team's current color commentator, breaking barriers, and a great story. I thank both of you for coming on the show before the show podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
This has been a really good opportunity. And, I love to get the story of somebody with disabilities out there, because I want to prove to people that, sure, you may have disabilities, and yes, you may have to do some things that are really hard work, but you can do it. And if you put your mind to it, you can and will succeed.
Well said, and you're setting that example, in real time with the captains right now, and it's great to see. So, wish you continued success, and looking forward to hearing the games coming up this weekend and next week.
All right. Well, thank you for having us, and go Captains.
Well, we turn now to our fearless prospect ranking guru extraordinaire, one Samuel Collins Dykstra, who joins the show today. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
I'm grand. We were gonna do something. We're trying to figure out in what order we should record this, and Sam said, "Well, I can't stick around here all day. So excuse me, Sam, that we're cutting into your precious time of your quote unquote work day when you're doing quote unquote work."
I mean, yeah, I'm working in baseball. So does it feel like work? Yeah, actually, yes. Yes, it does. I was thinking about this on my way in today. There are like 3 days that are my busiest of the year. The trade deadline, the day we come out with the preseason rankings, and the day we come out with the midseason rankings. And I'm talking to you today on Thursday, which is the day we come out with the midseason rankings.
Midseason rankings day.
Yeah, which is when we add the draft picks to our top 30s. We revamp all the top 30s. We revamp the top 100. We revamp the top 10 positional lists. Everything gets a fresh coat of paint. Everything gets a fresh set of additions. This is not just slightly moving around guys. This is like taking everything down, putting it back together. It's a lot of work. It's been a lot of work that's gone on the last few weeks between me, myself, Jonathan Mayo, Jim Callis, tons of people behind the scenes. I'm excited to get it out there. But yeah, I'm still in the midst of it now, still tweaking things, still moving stuff around. Not the order. The orders are all set. But by the time you guys see everything, it'll be, pristine and new and fresh. And it's already out there for you guys now. It's been up since Thursday night. So happy to chat about with you now, Tyler, although you're kind of getting a little bit of a sneak peek.
I am. And I am going to just break some news to everyone, which is that if you had a child in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you named him Jackson and he's good at baseball, he's probably a top 10 prospect, because we've got 2 at the top of the list. We've got 1 at number 9. It's good. Like when I was born, there were a lot of Tylers, mid 80s, there were a lot of Tylers. Late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of Jacksons, and it seems to be succeeding for those guys. Good for them. And our top, not 1, but 2 prospects in baseball are named Jackson. Jackson Holliday returns at the top slot overall, and Jackson Churio, number 2, followed by a couple of 2023 draft selections, Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz at number 3 and 4. I'm not going to go through the whole top 10/top 100. The other Jackson, by the way, is Jackson Merrill, who's at number 9. But let's narrow it down to sort of the process for this. And how you guys landed this is such a talented draft class. And you've got guys now who are in the top 4, obviously, headed into the remainder of this season and on into their first full pro season. But give us the process for the midseason re-rank first.
Yeah, so the process, the way it works is I have my top 100, Jim has his, Jonathan has his. We all vote together. We throw it all in together as a big soup, combine the list, come up with an aggregate list, then we send that out for feedback from the industry. We get lots of people chiming in, hey, move this guy up, move this guy down. Hey, consider this guy, maybe you missed on somebody. And that's great. That's why we do what we do. And we want to get this as close to not a consensus necessarily, because everybody's going to have a different list, but as close to an educated guess as we can. There is no golden list out there. I have to remind people of that a lot. They think like, oh, we're all aiming to get, as if like God is grading us somewhere. Of in like, no, here's the true top 100. There is no true top 100. Everybody's a little subjective on this kind of stuff. So, we try to get as much feedback as we can. We incorporate that feedback, and then we come up with the top 100. So when we do this, or when we did it this time, we all had Jackson Holliday, number 1. He's the number 1 prospect in baseball with a bullet. There are some considerations for Jackson Churio, who's had a great month of July at AA at only 19 years old. Paul Skeens was a generational arm in the draft. He's number 3. Dylan Cruz, some people actually preferred him in the draft as a 70 grade hitter coming out of LSU. He's really good. Ethan Salas is only 17 and is already at high A. Like, there are some really, really good prospects here. It does not necessarily fall off a cliff from Jackson Holliday, but the way he's hit everywhere he's played this year, single A, high A, now at double A in his first full season. It doesn't matter that he's the number 1 overall pick, but the fact that the Orioles have hit on him and continued to plug him into their hitting apparatus at the pitching or at the player development levels. I mean, you see how they've developed Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and on down the line. Heston Kjerstad's having a good year. He's in our top 100 too. They've been churning out hitters, and Jackson Holliday has the potential, and I don't say this lightly, to be the most talented hitter of the bunch. Is he a better prospect than Adley Rutschman? We can debate that. Adley Rutschman is a really, really good defender behind the plate, plays a premium position. Jackson Holliday is a pretty good defender at shortstop. I think he still has some growth to go on there, but I think Jackson Holliday could be the best hitter the Orioles have produced during this entire rebuild, and that's saying something given where they stand right now in the American League.
All right, Sam, of the re-ranks for the mid-season top 100, we've got a tab on our document that has all of your votes, you, Jim, Jonathan, and there are some where you're high on somebody, the other guys are lower, or you're low on somebody and they're higher. I don't want to necessarily throw all those out there, but who can you give us a little behind the scenes on that you kind of either had to make a case for, or that maybe you thought, I'm not sure that guy's ready to be at top 10, top 15, top 20, whatever. There's always these very interesting arguments where you could think that somebody's, the number 5 prospect in baseball, and one of your coworkers thinks, no, I've got him at 15. Was there anybody that stood out like that this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I think the debate on Ethan Salas was fascinating, and that's going to make it sound like I was the high man on him. I was somehow the low man on him, just because I think development with catchers can be difficult. There's just so many things that can go wrong. Those guys sit behind the plate 4, 5, 6 times a week. A deflected foul ball could go wrong. Your knees could go out. I mean, they have the most difficult job in baseball, and one of the most difficult jobs in sports, I think. So a guy who's already a catcher at 17, there's a lot of wear and tear that's going to come. But the fact that he's been so promising so far, and the Padres have done a really, really good job at protecting him. They're not letting him catch every day at single A or now at high A. They are spreading it out. They're getting him at DH work because they want him to hit. Like, the glove may be above the bat right now, but it's a plus hit tool easily, and the power can really play too. It's super exciting. So credit to the other guys. They kind of pushed me and said, hey, listen, this is a guy that this doesn't happen. We don't see 17-year-olds make a stateside debut, first off. We don't see them get pushed past the complex leagues, and we don't see them perform like we've seen him perform. So you keep pushing them up. And then the feedback we got too was like, hey, not necessarily number 1, but like, he might be one of the most valuable players in baseball right now because of how young he is, how much development time is ahead, and because of his position. So it's a fascinating debate behind Ethan Salas. Another one I'll throw out is Red Sox outfielder Roman Anthony. Such a difficult guy to rank because you look at what he was doing at single A, it wasn't good on the surface. He had some rough numbers at single A coming into this year. It's his first full season, but the underlying numbers were really good. He was making really good swing decisions. He was hitting the ball hard. It was just a lot of bad batted ball luck, essentially. And the Red Sox promoted him at a time where his slash line was not up to league average at single A. Now you're looking at what he's doing at high A. He's hitting for really good power. He's hitting the ball over the wall the opposite way. The green monster that they have there in Greenville, the power is playing. Like, if those swing decisions continue and he's hitting for that power, he could go up even higher than we have him, which is in the top 40. He is striking out more at high A than you would like, and I think that's why we put on the brakes a little bit more. But he's definitely somebody to watch, and somebody who I could easily see jumping into our maybe even top 20 by the time we do our next rank, which will be obviously in the preseason for 2024.
Not that we want to point out anybody's shortcomings this year, but were there any fallers? I mean, anybody who came down the rankings in a way that was somewhat unexpected, or, and it could be inconsistency related, or a promotion that hasn't sat well, or whatever it is. But is there anybody that you think is sort of on notice of kind of falling out of that premier prospect community that you had some higher hopes for earlier in the year?
Yeah, I mean, one that immediately jumps to mind, and this is because I do the Mets list, is Kevin Parada. was a really good catching prospect coming out of the draft, maybe the best or one of the best in last year's draft. Some scouts had him as a plus hit tool and plus power. And he got sent to high A Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a very difficult place to hit. I totally understand that. But you look at some of the underlying data, it might be closer to an average hit tool now. The power is still there. I know it's tough to judge how a guy's hitting in that league. But we also had kind of hopes that he could be maybe an average catcher in time, and that hasn't quite worked. The Mets, I think, are pleased with how he's progressing behind the plate, but he's not looking like a potential sure thing catcher. And so if we're already questioning the hit tool a little bit more than we did coming into the year, and now we're questioning the defense, he dropped pretty significantly. He's still in the top 100, and there's a chance something could come around. I mean, I think back to Henry Davis. I was making this comparison the other day. Henry Davis has been playing right field for the Pirates. Now, Henry Davis has a really, really good arm. Kevin Parada does not have that.
Henry Davis just jumped to the big leagues and was already getting highlight reel moments on nightly sports shows for that cannon and right.
Right. So that's even when Henry Davis, there were questions about his glove behind the plate. He was like, he can still throw guys out. That's pretty valuable. Kevin Parada doesn't have that. So I kind of wonder if they would move him to left at some point. There's some people who think maybe second base could be in the cards for him. I feel like I'm probably drilling too much down on him, but he was somebody who immediately jumped to my mind. It was like, oh, he's slipping a little bit more than maybe you would like. Another one that is just difficult to rank is Andrew Painter. We had him at the time, as we're recording right now, Tyler, we have him at number 8, but he underwent Tommy John surgery. And it was something that got strung along all summer of like, oh, we're protecting the elbow. We're going to let him throw a little bit. Oh, well, actually, he does need Tommy John. So he's lost months of development. He underwent Tommy John. He's probably not coming back, if at all, next year until the back half of the 2024 season. Those are 2 years of lost development for Andrew Painter. Now, he was the best pitching prospect in the minors before the injury. Like coming into the year, there was talk, I'm sure you remember, in the spring. Andrew Painter, opening day roster.
He could be on the roster. Yeah.
Right. So we still like him a lot, but it's difficult to project him where he's going to be after Tommy John. Like Tommy John has a lot of success stories now, but he doesn't make as big a drop as Kevin Parada, but he does drop a few spots. And this is something we talked about on this list of it's very pitching light. Now you look at the minor leagues, it's tough to find really great pitching, which makes somebody like Paul Skeens stand out all the more. He's actually making his FCL debut today. So we have barely seen him pitch in the minor leagues. And hopefully the Pirates find a route to protect him and allow him to still hit 102 and throw that killer slider. But, with injuries piling up and stuff getting a little less crisp as guys prioritize throwing for velocity, it's tougher to find pitching these days.
All right, Samuel, as far as the relaxation moment for you guys once you get the top 100 out there, you probably always have in the back of your mind the thought of, all right, what's this going to look like at the end of the season? If you had a couple of guys that you wanted people to keep an eye on that could make a big jump toward the end of 2023 and on into 2024, what would that entail? Who would those guys be, and why do you think by the end of this season, beginning of next season, there's obviously not a ton of time right now to really make some huge leap, but you can see a late season promotion, a guy excels at a level that he hasn't played yet this season, and all of a sudden you think, all right, maybe that dude's more ready than I thought he was to be climbing these rankings. Is there anybody who you think by the start of 2024 in that list could be a little bit more in the discussion of somebody to really keep an eye on and circle going into next year?
Yeah, I'll give you one arm and one bat. Somebody who didn't make the top 100, but could very well soon, because as people know, we keep these lists updated as graduations happen, is Xavier Isaac, Tampa Bay Rays first baseman. The Rays pretty much shocked the industry by taking Isaac with their first round pick a year ago. He's a first base only guy. He really needs to work on his defensive first base, but they believed enough in the slugging ability, and it's really come through in his first full season. He's been about 40% better than the average Carolina League hitter in single A. So the fact that the bat is already playing this well, he slimmed down a little bit got himself to be a little bit more athletic. That's something they're really working on with him. Talking to the Rays, they're like, hey, listen, we know we have a big 3. especially after the trade of trading Kyle Manzardo to the Cleveland Guardians. We know the big three is Junior Caminero, Curtis Mead, and Carson Williams. We think Xavier Isaac's right there, and then you dig into the data, and it's like, yeah, he is right there. So if this continues on, if the bat holds up, and fatigue could be a problem, you never know. Like, he is a high school guy last year. He's playing deep into August and September coming up. That he could tail off a little, but like the power is really, really coming through in the ways that I think Tampa Bay dreamed they would when they made him a first round pick. So he's somebody to keep an eye on. Another one staying in the AL East is Ricky Tiedemann of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, we've talked about him before.
Yeah, Ricky Tiedemann had a great season last year. And hasn't pitched much this year, at least in official minor league games, because of biceps issues. He's slowly coming back. He's been rehabbing. He's currently at Single A Dunedin, but he's coming back and having some conversations. It sounds like he's a real candidate for the Arizona Fall League. Now, if he shows up in the Fall League, I feel pretty comfortable saying he's going to be the best pitcher there. And if he shoves like we know he can, and you probably won't have too many limitations in the Fall League. Sometimes you get guys starting and they only go 3-4 innings because they're working at the end of a long season. It sounds like, talking to the Jays, he's been raring to go for a while. They just don't want to further hurt any of the biceps or any of the arm issues. But throw him in the Fall League, let him throw that, 70 grade changeup, let him touch the mid 90s, get up to the high 90s. We could be talking about Ricky Tiedemann again as one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. We already think that, like, we didn't move him too much in the top 100, but just getting to see him again on that big stage against some advanced bats in the, prospect graduate school, as we call the Fall League, that would give Tiedemann's stock a pretty big boost. So fingers crossed. He actually, nothing's official. He hasn't been officially sent there. He's on a short list right now. There are discussions to make that happen, but I would love to see it.
Sam Dykstra, one of our a three-headed monster of prospect ranking gurus. I don't want to refer to Jim Cowles and Jonathan Mayo as part of a monster. That's just you.
We're a nice monster. Think of us as like a Sesame Street monster.
That's true. Okay. All right. That's fair. Good stuff, man. The updated top 100 rankings on the site, MLB Pipeline. And I assume from now you're just going to sleep until the end of the season once the top 100 rank is over.
I would love to, but there is still a season to go, and there's still lots to follow. So I might be taking a little bit of a break once this drops, but I'm excited to get it out there. I really am. I think, the amount of work that goes into this, it shows in the product, and I'm happy to chat about it. Like, if anybody looks at something and wants an explanation of like, hey, why is so-and-so ranked and so-and-so isn't, or why is this guy so high and this guy so low? We do all this for a reason. It's not throwing darts at a dartboard as much as it feels like it sometimes from the outside. I mean, there's a reason for everything we do. So happy to chat about it. If anybody has any individual questions, hit me up on Twitter.
All right, Sam. Enjoy the come down from the release of the new top 100. We'll catch you next week, buddy.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon, Tyler.
Well, obviously, no ghosts of the minors for this week. Josh Jackson taking a week away from his ghostly duties. But a huge thanks to Sam for stopping by, to our guys from Lake County as well. And before we get out of here, our week where we tell you the things to watch and look out for on MILB.TV and across the minor league landscapes, ballparks, coast to coast. Ben, the promo you are most excited for this week is what?
Yeah. Well, first I'll just speak for Sam Dykstra, who couldn't join us for that segment. Look out for his prospect re-rankings currently being feverishly scribbled onto an oversized notepad. And
I like imagining him doing it on Windows with chalk, like in A Beautiful Mind.
It's pretty close to that. So look out for that from Sam. Sorry, he can't join us here at the end. But for me, a promo, we're in the midst right now of a epic 6-game stretch that started on August 8th, which was Tuesday, and runs all the way through the end of the weekend. The Altoona Curve are playing as the Altoona Pizzas. And, we've seen some pizza food theme identities through the years. Brooklyn comes to mind. I think they were the Slices. But usually when you're doing a food themed identity, you're really celebrating something that your region is known for and does spectacularly well. In Altoona Pizza, they have a reputation for that pizza being like the worst in the country. So the Curve are running with that and like kind of just owning it. But it might not be super widespread in Altoona. But in Altoona Pizza, which was originated and I believe now defunct establishment called the Altoona Hotel, it's cut into squares and then topped with American cheese. So it's just like yellow, big clump of American cheese on top of this square piece of bread. And
it is really something. I remember it went viral a couple of years ago. Somebody had posted a picture of getting a piece of Altoona pizza somewhere in Altoona, and it went viral. And yeah, I lived in Altoona for a year. I don't remember that at all.
Right.
It feels very, yeah.
Right. You're a former Curve broadcaster, and it's not like during your year there, it was just like
we were just Mike Fast and Easy and I were just crushing Altoona pizza.
Yeah, not exactly, but it at least did have some local renown, popularity, at least at this one establishment. And I think once that closed, some other places kind of kept it going. So it's definitely a niche thing, but I like that the Curve are just being like, hey, you want to get online and talk trash about our pizza?
We're
Guess
going
what?
for it.
Yeah, we're going for it. We're the Altoona Pizzas. Come get a slice or a hunk or whatever you call a American
slab.
A slab. That's the word. Come get a slab and watch us play as the Altoona Pizzas. So that's going all the way through August 13th. 6 games as the Altoona Pizzas. That is a lot of slabs.
It is. Well, from an on-field standpoint, a guy who we mentioned earlier on in this show, he is the new number 4 prospect in baseball. That is Washington Nationals outfielder Dylan Cruz, who has made his way up to Fredericksburg. He's getting started at Single A this week. It's a battle of the Bergs, Fredericksburg against Lynchburg. You can catch those games at MILB.TV. He is the free game on Thursday, so you won't have the free game of the week because you're hearing this on Friday or later. But sign up for MILB.TV, and you too can watch Dylan Cruz as he gets rolling in his Single A stay with the Fredericksburg Nationals. And that'll do it on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. Again, a big thanks to our guys from Lake County and for Sam for swinging by and for Benjamin Hill and the absentee Josh Jackson. My name is Tyler Vaughn. We'll catch you next week.